everyone. Welcome to Daily Dictation. Today, I'm going to present an interactive video to you to help you practice your English skills. You'll need a piece of paper and a pencil or a blank document that you can type into. You are going to practice your listening skills and your writing skills. To do that, I'm going to read you 5 sentences. The sentences are about workplace decisions because that's the topic that we're studying this week. And the sentences will be at a high intermediate level, which means that the structures will be a little bit more complex and the vocabulary will be a little bit more complex. As I read these 5 sentences, you will write them down. This is where you use your listening skills because you're going to write down these sentences exactly how you hear them, and you're going to apply your writing skills because you're going to apply the correct spelling, punctuation, grammar, and all of these things when you write down the sentences. So this is really good because when you do a proficiency exam such as IELTS, TOEFL, or CELPIP, you do need to take down notes in English as you listen to something. You need to be able to rely on your notes and make sure that they are effective and accurate. So practicing this every day with daily dictation helps you get that skill. Also, the topics that we present here, like workplace decisions, after you write down all 5 sentences, I'm going to tell you the answers. I'm going to explain the grammar to you. I'm going to explain the spelling tips to you. And I'm going to give you a list of vocabulary to help you expand your vocabulary. And this vocabulary will help you in either speaking, writing, or listening when you do a proficiency exam, especially speaking, especially if this topic is relevant to your life, because sometimes you will be asked, what do you do for work? And then you can use this vocabulary to show that you have a very complex range of vocabulary, which will get you a high band score. Okay, as long as you use it correctly. So let's talk a little bit more about daily dictation. There are new sentences from Monday to Friday, and there's new topics each week. So each week we look at a single topic with a single set of vocabulary, and you see all the different forms of this vocabulary and the way that it's used. And then by the end of the week, you should be able to write down all of the sentences and words perfectly after practicing the same thing all week. And there's new topics each week. If you find that this level is a little bit too hard, there is an easier level available as well. For the task itself, you will need a blank piece of paper and a pencil. 5 sentences will be read. Each sentence will be read 3 times and 1 more time at the end. You have to write down each sentence to the best of your ability, and you will use your listening skills to do this. Try your best to apply the correct spelling, punctuation, and capitalization for each sentence. Right, so if you look at the screen, you're going to see numbers 1 to 5. Write this down in your document or on your piece of paper, because each of these numbers represent a different sentence that I will read. So I'm going to start with sentence number 1. Number 1. The feedback we received highlighted the need for better optimization of our current systems. The feedback we received highlighted the need for better optimization of our current systems. The feedback we received highlighted the need for better optimization of our current systems. Number 2. The team carefully considered several alternatives before reaching a consensus. The team carefully considered several alternatives before reaching a consensus. The team carefully considered several alternatives before reaching a consensus. Number 3. Because we had to move forward, we had to assess whether the proposed solutions were feasible given the prioritization of resources. Because we had to move forward, we had to assess whether the proposed solutions were feasible given the prioritization of resources. Because we had to move forward, we had to assess whether the proposed solutions were feasible given the prioritization of resources. Number 4. The risk assessment showed that some scenarios might pose significant challenges. The risk assessment showed that some scenarios might pose significant challenges. The risk assessment showed that some scenarios might pose significant challenges. Number 5. Although the initial proposal had a veto from the board, the revised plan was quickly deemed feasible and set into motion. Although the initial proposal had a veto from the board, the revised plan was quickly deemed feasible and set into motion. Although the initial proposal had a veto from the board, the revised plan was quickly deemed feasible and set into motion. Now I'm going to read each sentence one more time, starting with sentence number 1. The feedback we received highlighted the need for better optimization of our current systems. Number 2, the team carefully considered several alternatives before reaching a consensus. Number 3, because we had to move forward, we had to assess whether the proposed solutions were feasible given the prioritization of resources. Number 4, the risk assessment showed that some scenarios might pose significant challenges. Number 5, although the initial proposal had a veto from the board, the revised plan was quickly deemed feasible and set into motion. All right. I'm sure everybody did a really great job writing down their sentences. Let's get ready to check our answers. If you found that this video was a little bit fast or hard to grab and understand, please watch the video again, but you can make it go slower by adjusting the playback speed in the settings of the video. If you need to listen to specific sentences again, just check the description for timestamps, and this will help you listen to specific sentence numbers. If you feel like you got everything correct, we're going to check our answers. We're going to start with number 1. The feedback we received highlighted the need for better optimization of our current systems. Okay, so the feedback we received highlighted. The feedback we received, this is long, many words, but it is all our subject. Highlighted is our main verb. The need for better optimization of our current systems. This is really long. This is our object. And need here, the need, this is a noun. Because it's a noun, we're following with for. Better is an adjective. Optimization is the process that we're talking about in noun form with T-I-O-N at the end. And then giving us even more information, optimization of what? Our current systems. There's 2 difficult words. I mean, there's a lot of difficult words here, but 2 that we haven't really looked at this week yet that might be a little bit hard, highlighted, because we have lots of GH here. So high, split it up into 2, but remind yourself, high is one word, light is another word, and it is a verb here, so we do add the ED at the end because it's simple past in this case. Split it up into 2 so you can remember the order. H-I-G-H-L-I-G-H. Don't forget the T and the ED. Even though it's 2 words usually, because it's one verb, one action here, we're going to make sure we put it together as one. But split it up here for just spelling purposes. Received is another hard one. Oftentimes when we spell, I comes before E. We have a saying in English, and it's I before E except after C. So in almost all cases, when we have I and E together, I will come first and E will come second for spelling. But then in this case, we say except after C. So in this case, we have C. Because after C, we have the words E and I. We're going to put it in that order. E first, then I. And any other way, we have I and then E. But in this case, we have E and then I. So I after E, except after C. Okay, let's move on to the next one. The team carefully considered several alternatives before reaching a consensus. Okay, so the team is the subject and it's singular. Considered is the main verb, and carefully is an adverb here that's added, and it's an adverb to modify the way that things are being considered. So it's going to come before the verb. Several, another adjective or determiner, alternatives, noun, plural, before is a conjunction. Following this conjunction, we're going to have a gerund, reaching. That's why it's an ing form, but it is functioning like a noun. So it is a gerund, not a verb. A consensus, an agreement. And again, remembering the spelling. Con, sen, sus. So split it up into 3 smaller parts to help you remember all of the S's, because there's 3 and the order of the letters overall. Number 3, because we had to move forward, we had to assess whether the proposed solutions were feasible given the prioritization of resources. Okay, so we're starting with because we had to move forward. Starting with a conjunction, because. So because we're starting with a conjunction here, that's telling us that this is a dependent clause. And so after the dependent clause, we do need a comma before our independent clause starts. This alone, because we're starting with because, it's not giving us any other information. It's a dependent clause. It doesn't make sense by itself. Now here, we had to assess. We is the subject. Had is the main verb. It's a non-action verb. Non-action verb. So because we have our main verb is non-action, the next thing that's going to follow is an infinitive. We've seen this come up a few times. We have non-action, subject plus non-action plus infinitive. That is one of the typical structures to assess what? Whether the proposed solutions were feasible. So here, we don't want this to get confused. When we're talking about different options, for example, or different possible outcomes, we're using whether, WHETHER, not to be confused with how cold, hot, rainy, or snowy is it today, because that is weather. So weather is a noun here. This is not a noun. This is used to talk about different options or outcomes. And usually this one follows with a noun, whether what, the proposed solutions. So that is a noun. The form of be to follow, because we have an adjective here. Feasible is an adjective. And then it's telling us more about the information. So is this feasible under these conditions is basically what this is. Given these conditions is like under the prioritization of resources, but under doesn't really work here as a preposition. So we provide given to talk about these conditions here. Prioritization is a process and it's in noun form. We know this because it ends in TION, and resources. Overall, most of the words here should be relatively straightforward. We've looked at prioritization before, split it up into smaller bits so you can remember all of the I's. Otherwise, if you try to memorize the whole thing, maybe you can do it. But what I see commonly is people try to memorize the whole word and they're forgetting some I's. They think, oh, 4 I's is too much. I'm not going to put that, or I'm going to put some other vowel in there. No, 4 I's is a lot, but that's what we need for this word. And so split it up into some smaller bits. Number 4, the risk assessment showed that some scenarios might pose significant challenges. So in this case, the risk assessment is our subject. Showed is our main verb. Showed. So we do have a that clause because we start with the word that. And in some cases, the that clause can be dropped. So it's up to you. If we say the risk assessment showed some scenarios might pose significant challenges, that's fine too. That actually makes perfect sense as well. So whether you use that or not in this case, grammatically, it makes sense both ways. The reason why some of us prefer to use that is because it provides emphasis on the situation. And so here we're using it here to provide more emphasis. And showed some scenarios might pose significant challenges. That's the object of the sentence. And so for scenarios, we want to split this up. Remember that it comes from the word seen. So we can do sen, er, eo is split up into small bits like that. And significant can be kind of a hard one too, because it just GN and N again. Lots of I's for this one as well. So I actually split it up as significant, significant, or you can do fit like that. Up to you how you want to split it up. Now over here, although the initial proposal had a veto from the board, the revised plan was quickly deemed feasible and set into motion. Okay, so we're starting with a conjunction, which tells us this is a, same as up here, dependent clause. So because it's part of a dependent clause, we know we need a comma after the clause, at the end of the clause. Right here. And again, how do we know this is the end of the clause? Because right here, the revised plan, we're starting with a subject here, and was is our verb. It's a form of be in the past. And then we have a main verb here. So here, we know that we have subject verb. And so right before that, that typically means that we need a comma to show that the end of the clause is here. Because we have subject verb and then object of a sentence, that shows us that we're following the independent clause. The revised plan was quickly deemed feasible and set into motion. That makes perfect sense by itself. We really don't need any additional information. If we didn't have the other part of the sentence, it would make sense. But we can't say the same for this. So that's why the second part is independent. Okay, so now the next thing was quickly deemed feasible. Deemed means to officially label something. Feasible is a adjective. So deemed is a verb. Quickly is an adverb. And it is used to modify the verb deemed. So it goes right before it. Feasible is our adjective. And this just provides us more. So the conjunction and what happened next, it was set into motion, which means it started. All right, so this kind of gives you a breakdown of the different sentence structures, some of the grammar behind it, some of the parts of speech that's good to know. What modifies what? Why do we need commas in some areas? Some of the spelling tips. Now we have some bold words here. I'm going to bring your attention to the bold words because they are good to know. So here are some words that you should review, know what they mean, know how to use them in your sentences. We have veto, consensus, on the fence, prioritization, feedback, alternatives, optimization, risk assessment, scenario, feasible. So we have all of these words here. Make sure you know how they're used. Make sure you know the different forms. You can use them in a spoken sentence. You can use them in a written sentence. And this will really help you, especially if you can use these words to talk about your own job, because in a speaking exam such as IELTS or CELPIP or something like this, they might ask you about your job to get to know you. in an interview. So it is really good to know how to use these words to show that you have a wide range of complex vocabulary and can use it accurately. That will get you a higher score. Okay, so thank you so much for watching. That is all for today. Keep on trying your best. Keep on practicing your English, and I will see you next time. Bye.